Shemai Frindiai and welcome back to my channel. My name is Gaeaf Gwanwyn for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And today I'm starting my first spring themed habitat, and it's really fitting that I'm doing a European badger for my first spring habitat, because one of the fun facts for the badgers says that in some European countries, badgers are attributed as the heralds of spring in folklore. So they really are the perfect habitat to start spring with. And I wanted to have a go at trying a custom barrier using the European style fences, just to match in with the fence and the pass barriers that I did for the little Amsterdam town last week. Thought maybe I could use the red brick barriers, but I wasn't really a big fan of them. And I've actually sorted out my settings, because I'm in sandbox, to stop any animals from escaping, because it just gets annoying. I just want to make aesthetically pleasing habitats for my animals. I don't really care about them being able to escape or anything, so I just changed the sandbox settings just to stop them from escaping. So this isn't the most secure habitat, I guess, but I don't really mind. I just want it for aesthetics. And this habitat was largely inspired by the sculpture walk in the Forest of Dean, which is really fun because the European badgers are found in the UK, so it was nice to have something kind of inspired by something British. I do like adding in things from where I live as well, like I love celebrating being Welsh. And the Forest of Dean actually is on the border of Wales and England, so it's kind of close to where I live in a way. And I saw this image, and it's like this woven sculpture, kind of like a nest, but upside down nest, like a dome. And on the top of this dome is a badger head, and I saw that and I thought it would be perfect for a badger habitat. In the sculpture walk there was a bench to sit on inside the badger dome. I don't know what to call it, but I really liked that, and I thought it would be like a really nice cover for the new badger burrow. And I'm creating kind of like a template out of the art shapes, so I can see what I kind of want to plan out. I'm not gonna keep it as the art shapes because it looks kind of a bit daft, I guess. I always find it easier to work against a template or against something else when I'm building something a little bit more complicated. And I'm using the branches because they look more natural than some of the sticks in game, but they're also, because they're more natural, they're not exactly straight. Like, bitch me neither, but still it makes it a lot harder to build with because they're not easy to line up. And the hardest bit building this whole thing was trying to get this nice curved inward shape at the front. Because we have the 360 rotation, there's not like a flip. There's a rotate but not a flip. So it's hard to try and make both sides completely even. I did my best with that, but I think because it's such a natural sculpture made out of these woven sticks in real life, I could get away with a few bumpy, not so perfect bits on the build itself. For the back and the domed part, I did the circle trick, which if you have two objects parallel to each other and you duplicate them using the advanced move tool, so that is Control X, and if you use the rotation tool then to duplicate it, you can create a circle. With this amount of objects, I utilized the group tool more, so I had a separate group for the art shapes as my template, and then I had a separate group for the main dome to the front curved pieces, because there's just so many individual pieces to create this. There's so many individual sticks. It was really hard to individually click on anything because I'd overlap them so much to create the dome, because I can then group them back together at the end by using the multi-select tool. And I'm also filling out the front curved piece using the same circle technique, and a quick way of deleting things as well. So many little tricks that I use just to create one piece, like clicking and dragging to select a large group of items that I don't want there, but that's kind of difficult as well because you can select things you don't want to do. If you want to delete objects in another quick and easy way, just right click them. It took me an embarrassing amount of time to realize that I can right click something and it immediately deletes. You can't do that with individual items, but in a group, right clicking is like the quickest and easiest way to delete something you don't want in your build. But I really liked sharing some of my build tricks to save time, to build more complicated looking objects. And that's why I started my short series, the less than 60-second vertical videos that I post on Saturdays. Do you watch the short form videos on YouTube, or do you watch short form videos on other platforms like TikTok? I watch a mix of both, really. I'm more of a YouTube person, but I think that's just the millennial in me. I'm used to this platform. I'm comfy in in the YouTube space. But do you watch the shorts? And what kind of shorts do you watch? I like animal shorts. The casual geographic videos, Useless Farm, and they have a emu. I don't know how to pronounce that. They have this big bird called Karen that is pretty evil and does not like her, but it's so fun to watch. I love like watching animal videos. I guess that's why I like Planet Zoo so much, because even though I do spend the majority of my time creating just pretty aesthetically pleasing habitats, I do really love animals. And if I thought the dome basket was tricky to do, oh my goodness, did I fucking hate this head. I sort of tried to do the same technique using the shapes to create like a template to follow with the sticks then. I don't think I placed it evenly enough, because once I started duplicating it then it was not having it. From a distance, I guess like when the guests walk across, it will look like a badger eventually. And the badgers are just so cute. They're one of my favourite animals from the Europe pack. And because these sticks aren't flexi-colour, I had to work with what we had. Can't always have flexi-colour everything, I guess. So I used the thinner branch, because it was a slightly darker shade of brown, to create the badger's stripes on his face. From a distance you can't see the smaller branches sticking out of the dome or out of the face of the badger, luckily. When I zoom in a little bit more you can definitely see the extra branches sticking out. I don't really mind it. It is a natural object, a natural build, so I don't really mind it having some extra branches sticking out here, there and everywhere. I thought because this build is inspired by something in the Forest of Dean that I would fill out the rest of the habitat with trees and kind of make it like a forested habitat. And I picked lots of different European trees. I thought it'd be nice to use different types of trees for each different section of the zoo. So I didn't want to do too many evergreen trees like in winter, or any autumnal coloured trees like for autumn. Like I did like the London plane trees. They are one of my favourite trees in the game, and that is just because they were mentioned in one of my favourite series of books, the Shadowhunters. They were mentioned in Chain of Iron or Chain of Gold, I don't know, and they are my favourites, so I do really enjoy placing these trees just as a little subtle nod to one of my favourite book series. And I also had a look at the other sculptures in the Forest of Dean sculpture walk to add in extra little hints towards that And they had these beautiful stained glass, well, they're not exactly windows, just stained glass pieces hung from the trees. And I thought that would just be perfect, so I've already got stained glass. I was like, oh, perfect. Easy decoration that brings lots of vibrant colours. And I could add in the ones that have the badgers in them. So it's definitely badger inspired. And then I thought, because it took me so long to create this badger sculpture, that I would kind of cheat a little bit and use some of the pre-built sculptures for the rest of the decorations around the habitat. I tried to pick things that weren't really obviously different animals, like copper giraffe neck. I think it was supposed to be a giraffe, and some antelope horns. I think it was something to do with antelope, and I did like a trio of them curved in different directions just to make it kind of abstract-y, arty. And I found these wooden grass, I don't know, and I thought they looked like stems of flowers, and I was going with like the spring theme, and my favorite spring flowers are tulips. So I had a look and played around with some of these leaves, and because they're flexi color, I could change the leaves to any color I want, and I thought it'd be really nice to create some tulips. The little flower at the back had like a small yellow center, which I thought could be the pollen in the center of the tulip. It's just so bright and so colourful with the rainbow tulips, and I was just going to have this as like a sculpture for the sculpture wall, but I thought because it had like this flat piece at the bottom that I could turn it into like an education board. But the regular education board was slightly too big for the piece that I'd created, so I ended up using one of the TVs. I'm adding in one of the education speakers in the center of the purple tulip, so it will actually count as education, because the TV screens, even though I've put the badger education image on the screen, it doesn't count as an education boost like an education board would. So adding the speakers in will still give the guests an education boost, education rating for the habitat. I also realised that I didn't really like the gorilla statue. I didn't really want a gorilla walking around the Forest of Dean. So I used the legs and created like an infinity shape. That's what it looks like to me anyway. Because the legs were crossed, I thought if I joined the two legs together, it kind of looks like an elongated 8, like an infinity symbol. And it was also in my mind because I've been reading a different book series at the moment. I finished all my Shadowhunters for now anyway. I've got till November for them. But I've been reading this series called the Premonition series. And a character in that series has a necklace with a circle and an infinity symbol in it. So I kind of had an infinity in my head. And I thought the giraffe sculpture wasn't really going with the spring theme. I wanted to add the wisteria, but the wisteria was slightly too large for the sculpture, so I started with some ivy and just using the advanced move tool to move and rotate the ivy to look like it's growing up the sculpture. And because it's so twisted and so angled in different directions, it was really hard to keep everything lined up on the metal surface. So you rotate it so it fits on the top, but then the bottom sticks out. So fiddly. I cannot remember what these flowers are called. They're like Arctic flowers, I think. Because they've got quite thin stems and they're not very leafy, which is probably why they can grow in more cold climates. They were the best flower to use in this sculpture because I could hide the thin stems and leaves in the center of the sculpture and have the flowers sticking out of the gaps, which I think is supposed to make the sculpture look like the spots of a giraffe. And because I really liked how the giraffe sculpture looked with all of the flowers and the greenery growing on it, I wanted to add more flowers growing around my infinity statue. That's we've got a badger basket, a leafy giraffe neck, and now flowery infinity. I swear I only really think of these names because I have to then do the timestamps, the chapters for the videos. So I try to think of actual names for all of these different objects that I build, but it doesn't really make sense unless you're actually watching the video, I guess. Just adding lots of greenery and plants around the edges. I spent so much time creating the barriers out of the fences, and then I ended up covering most of it with different bushes and plants just to blend in the edges into the terrain, but still making sure that I add in colour with the bushes as well. One of these bushes was called Blackthorn, which again, a Shadowhunter reference to me. It's probably not, but I don't really care. But I wanted to make sure that there was still colour in the bushes as well, so I'm using the purpley pink bush and merging it in with the green one, so there's only like little bits of purple, it's not like a full purple thing. And for a little bit more texture along the grass, to make it feel like it's more overgrown and a little bit more filled out, I'm using more flat bushes and lowering them into the ground so they only little bits of the grass pop out of the ground. It's a nice technique to add a little bit more texture without completely covering the whole area in different plants. But I couldn't stop with just the bushes and the low grasses. I wanted to add in some flowers in the patches of extra grassy area, and I've used the twin flowers. I think they're called twin flowers. One of them are called twin flowers anyway. And lowered them into the ground so only the tops of the flowers are showing. So I've lowered the leaves and the bushy bottom part into the ground so only the flowers are popping up. And I thought that kind of looked like snowdrops or bluebells. Bluebells are more of a spring flower that will grow in more forested areas, and just having that little teeny pop of colour, but not too much. That's why I've lowered it into the ground so they just look like small flowers. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We get the badgers in. They did forget to give them food, water and enrichment. The only thing they had in the habitat for a long time was the badger burrow, but I like the fact that I put the burrow right at the front so the guests can see the badgers going in and out of their burrow. But I had a lot of fun with this one, experimenting with different techniques and also using pretty much every technique I've cultivated while building all of these different habitats just to create that badger basket. I give up. What are we gonna call this? I don't know. What do you think it looks like? Does it even look like a badger? I tried really hard to make it look like a badger, but it was just not the easiest thing to create in Planet Zoo. But if you see any other things that look really fun to create but really complicated to create, and you think, let's challenge Caitlin, please do. I think it'd be really fun. Frustrating. I'd probably be cursing you in the middle of it, but I think it'd be fun to have like a challenge. If you see something like that, let me know in the comments or send me an image on one of my other social medias. My social medias are always linked in the description. And I'm going to leave it off there. We're on to the Pretties now, and the badgers are finally in, loving their Forest of Dean inspired habitat. And if you have any suggestions for any other spring themed habitats or any animals that you think would work really well with the spring theme, let me know in the comments as well. And if you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. And I upload every Wednesday for speed builds and Saturdays for short Saturdays. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!